Okay, we're going to do some work here with the history brush. And the history brush is kind of like an undo function that is brushed on instead of just undoing by backing up or using a keyboard shortcut. I'm going to start by just adding a new layer. It's important for this function to work to not spread out your layers. So leave them intact, leave them right on top of each other, and don't be tempted to unlock the bottom layer or move it. Just leave it right where it is. Okay, so basically the history brush can undo just about anything that you've applied to an image. So let's just check that out. First thing I'll do is slightly move the image. And I'll then go to my history brush, and as I drag over it, you'll see that it's moving it back into the same position that it was at. Okay, and if I warp the image, I'll pick warp here, and I'll just stretch the image, kind of extreme stretch. And then commit, and then I'll go to the history brush, and I can just move it right back where it was. Now, the thing that is kind of nice about this is you can also change the opacity of the brush. So instead of returning it to the history like immediately, you can have it do it in thin layers. And I'll undo a couple of steps there, cut my opacity even more. Now I'm down about 25%. And if I move the brush over the image, you can see that what's left is a ghost image of the original image moving back into position. If I go over it again and again, and if I just keep doing that, eventually I'll end up with the same image that I started with. Or I can go to the 100% and just do it in a single stroke. Okay, so you see how that works. Okay. I'm just going to step backwards a few steps in my history there. Okay, now, and it'll undo just about anything again that you can apply to it. Let's try oil paint. Oil paint is a really fun filter that you can add on. And once again, if I go to the history brush, I can return the metals of the flowers back to their original state. I can change the opacity here and move the outside edges back slowly, maybe a little too slowly. And you can see it moving it back to the original pixels. Okay, so all of those things are available to you. As you make these added layers, change the name of the layer to reflect what it is that you just did. For instance, that one was oil paint. Paint with history brush. What I did in class, I just select the whole title because I know I'm going to repeat some of that and copy it. And then turn that layer off, go back to your background, add a new layer, or as many as you want. 1, 2, 3, 4. We did 8 in class. So if you want to do 8, that would be ideal. But there's so many things you can do. You can even paint on the surface. If you paint on the surface, and then history brush will bring the paint back off. And you may be thinking, well, there's probably better ways to do that, and you'd be right. There probably is better ways to do that. You could just add a new, if we were painting any other time, we'd probably just add a new layer and paint on that layer, and then erase back through it if we wanted to erase. But, I mean, the point is that it'll even do that. Okay, so we did all kinds of stuff. We did, in class, we did liquefy. Liquefy is a lot of fun, where you can stretch parts of the image. You can make a bigger brush and stretch even more of it. Okay, and then out here with the history brush, you can bring parts of it back in. And we did a lot of these kind of double image kinds of things like that, and that's I think a good use of the history brush. Set it for less than full opacity, and it'll go slowly. Okay, so I'll turn that one off, rename it. That one was Liquify. And so I've got that one, I've got that one, and click on the next layer down and do something else with it. You could use some of the free transform things. Command T, right click, and you saw where we used the warp. You could use distort or perspective or even flip, and submit, and then back to the history brush. And as I'm clicking here, it's trying to return the image back to its original flip state, okay, which is kind of neat. It's almost like symmetrical repeat there. Okay, so again, be sure you name your layers as you go. And that one was free transform flip. Okay, and then what else did we do? Just really anything that you can think of. There's a ton of filters up here. If you go to your filter gallery, and even that one is good. We did talk about how the black and white ones do a particularly good choice. Now you really need to have your colors defaulted to make this look black and white. Filter gallery, sketch, graphic pen. I remember we did one with the graphic pen, and then back to the history brush, and it's really just the same idea. Now, one thing we did do with this that I just recalled was we used a textured brush. If you use a textured brush, maybe make it a little bit bigger, and maybe set the opacity a little higher. As you stroke across with this, you'll get a real painterly looking image in the middle. And on those edges, you can see the edge of the paint strokes, which is really kind of cool. Okay, kind of liked it better right about there. Okay, so there's, you can also daub with, you can do a little daub where you just click with it, like daubing it on. And what you're doing is returning the image back to its original state. And the opacity is adjustable. If you're using a graphics tablet, you can take advantage of all that stuff. Just remember to name your layers as you go. And this one was graphic pen. Let's see, paste, and then insert, graphic pen. And there's just a lot of different things that you can try here. Okay. We also did some blur. The blur things are really fun with the new field blur. New field blur, you can locate this blur pin, and as you move the outside ring, it blurs more or less, you see. But then the thing that's kind of interesting is you can add additional areas of blur. So this is sharp, and that one's blurred, and this one's sharp again, and this one's blurred, and maybe this one's sharp. Okay, you can reselect those and manipulate them even more if you want to. Click OK. Your blur comes in on the layer that you just used. You can undo parts of it, either with a brush of your choice, or a scatter brush, or whatever. But as you apply the history brush, it'll bring it back into whatever the original image was, which was a sharp image. Okay, so you can kind of manipulate the blur, you can manipulate the shape, you can manipulate the position, you could stretch it, you could make it smaller, you could do all that stuff. What we did to finish this up, we did the 8 layers, and then we, once they're all done, I'll just kind of take us to that point now. Then go to do your regular crop, stretch it out, give yourself plenty of room. Commit. And then move these out so that they are lined up on your file. We did 2 across, we did 4 across and 2 down. And I need a little more space on my canvas here. Actually, I think we did it this way. 1, 2, 3, 4. Using the Shift key. And then you can spread these out. And of course, you'll have 8 that have been manipulated. Where I didn't quite finish all of these. But then here's your original. You need a caption for it, a caption for this. And the way to remember what you did was simply to click, and you see over here, oh, this one was field blur. Forgot to name that one. Okay, so that one's field blur. And this one is flip, free transform with flip. This one was liquefy. And then name all your layers, and move all your type layers to the top of the stack, or put your layers in folders like some of you like to do. Okay, and that's how we did. That's a little better. Movie of what we did today with the history brush. Okay, you'll just need to finish it out like you always do with your titles and naming all your layers.